just seen some of these sessions wherein we just got to understand what is the meaning of a Tableau and how exactly the workflow of the Tableau is going to be. So that gave us an idea. It's of course a brief idea which we have got about the Tableau. And now it's important that we are going to get inside the bigger picture of Tableau. So that, let's talk about the entire architectural framework that a Tableau is basically using it for its operation. So this is what is going to be the discussion for this session. And for this session particularly, I wanted to acknowledge some of the pictures which I have taken from Dataflare, and really very nice pictures that depicts the architecture of a Tableau in a very easy manner. So we are going to adopt the pictures from that particular website, and I have cited the same as well. So now let's look into the architecture. So if you look before actually where we look into the architecture of how a Tableau is working, first let us have a look. First, let us have a understanding about how conventional analysis is happening. So we have spoken about this earlier also. Just to recollect how conventional analysis happens, this diagram would help you to understand the conventional analysis methodology. So you will have a data from multiple sources, as you could see, like, probably from an Excel or from an Oracle or from a cloud. You just get the data, and what you see as a combined form of data, most of the time the combined form of data look like an Excel or a PDF, and that's what is the report that is being generated conventionally. And those report is basically was shared among the users. How it was shared was maybe in the form of an email. It was being sent to multiple people. So most of the time, what are the difficulties that arose when they employed this methodology of analysis is that many people end up not reading any, not even going through the mail wherein the report was being sent. Okay, so and also this wasn't a problem when people were using a single system for performing all sort of analysis, but in you know how the trend is being changed and how many people are being using the computers these days, and anymore this type of methodology wouldn't work because we just wanted to see everything in a real time. So that's the reason why we are moving for something like a Tableau, right? So when we went for Tableau, the a bigger picture of architecture, bigger architecture of Tableau basically consisted of three components. Those are called as three major components of your Tableau. First is your data sources. As the name signifies, the data sources is the place where you're going to, where a user is going to get the data. Okay, and once the data has been received, it needs to be processed or it needs to be converted to a form which can be given to other users so that some kind of decisions could be made. So that's where the role of your Tableau server and a desktop comes into play. And also you have something like the clients. So these are three major sources of information that we need to understand. These are the main segments which take up a role in your Tableau architecture. So first, this detailed picture will help you to understand what is happening exactly inside your Tableau. So as you could see, the sources could be any of these sources. You could have a data from an Excel, or you could have a data from even from a CSV, or from an IBM you get it, or from a Vertica, Teradata. So there are data warehouses, databases, and then files. So from all these things, we are going to get the data. Okay, these are all of course are data sources. And all these data sources, from these data sources, we need to get the data inside, right? So basically, a user can get the data from these multiple sources in two ways. One is getting the data. It's what you call it as a live data connection. So when what is the meaning of a live data connection is the user is going to send an instant query to the data source, and then he's going to get the data. He will get whatever data he want immediately. So this is typically what we do in our MySQL environment or any kind of databases when we wanted to work out, when we want to get some information. Say for example, you have an employee data which has been maintained, and you just wanted to get an information about how many employees are residing in a particular place like Banarghatta. So when you have a query like this, so the user is actually creating a query, and then this query will be queried from the database, and then you're going to get the result instantaneously. This is one way of getting your data from the multiple sources into a Tableau environment. Or otherwise, you can actually extract the data. So extracting the data in the sense you are going to have a local copy of it. Okay, so most of the time whatever is being maintained in your database, you're not going to um, uh, take the complete data and then you will work on a data, and the data which is there in your database is going to be deleted. So that will not be the case. Most of the time you end up making a copy of the data so that you can make some kind of you wanted to get some insights out of the data, you have a temporary copy. So this is what you call it as a extraction. Okay, so through these two ways you can actually get the data from multiple sources into your Tableau desktop or into your Tableau server. For both of the things you're going to get the data. So that's the working responsibility of your data sources, and you could have got an idea about what are the different types of data sources available. Now we need to speak about your desktop and then server. So before we go to our server, basically first let us understand what is happening in the desktop. Okay, so see here in desktop is the version wherein this is actually going to act like an authoring tool basically. So because a kind of any kind of visualizations or any kind of dashboards you wanted to make out of the data, this is where it is going to happen. Okay, and then once you have performed all of these things, then it is going to be sent to multiple clients. So the clients, as you can see here, it could be your using a Tableau reader, you are trying to read the workbook, or through a static reader, and or through a web or a mobile users, all of them can get the data. Okay, so this is about your desktop. Coming to Tableau Server, actually Tableau Server has many components involved, and all of these components is going to work together, because this is where many of the important responsibilities or important processes is going to happen. So in your Tableau Server, this is basically going to take care of your data security as well as the users. Okay, so this is where you are going to store all the visualizations which is being published to the server, and you will have a cache basically. So that cache is for your performance improvement, and also you're having a manager or an automation. This will essentially help one to perform or take care of the scheduling updates. And also it has a presentation layer which is responsible for the giving out the data to your Tableau reader or other form of platform. Okay, so this is how Tableau desktop and your Tableau server is working. Final one is your client. Client is nothing but your end user. Okay, so the end users who are going to make use of the Tableau. How they will make use of the Tableau? They can either they will make use of a workbook or through a web or through a mobile device, on cloud or on premise, or through a CLI. Using any of these things, a user will actually have access to the Tableau. Okay, whomever is having access to the Tableau, they are supposed to be called as the client. So talking about the Tableau's architecture, major three segments which is involved in a Tableau's architecture is your data sources, and then you have your Tableau's desktop and server, and then you have your clients. I hope you got an idea on the different types of components which is involved in your Tableau's architecture. This is the high level 3 segments. Now, it is important for us to understand very detailedly about the server components. Okay, as I said previously, Tableau Server is a very, very important component because it is something who is going to manage, and also it is going to take care of some of the crucial processes. Okay, so let's try to understand what is happening inside. So when you will cut off your Tableau server and see internally what is there in your Tableau server, these are the components that you must be aware of. Starting from a gateway. See, gateway is basically a kind of web server. So whenever I use a term web server, it is clearly understandable that, some clients, if they wanted to communicate to a server, they will make use of your HTTP request or your HTTPS request. That's what we do when we wanted to access our Google or any kind of websites when we wanted to use it. So from our web browser, we just make use of the HTTP or the HTTPS protocol. Through that, we will be communicating through the server. Okay, so the server will receive the incoming client request, and then it is going to send that to the corresponding appropriate server for action. Okay, so this is what is the responsibility of a gateway. So gateway will actually try to perform the traffic routing and then serving some of the static files to the client. All of these operations will be taken care by the gateway. So from gateway, you will have connection obviously to the servers. You understand very clearly, gateway is sitting in between your server and the client, which means any kind of request which is coming from your client needs to be communicated or needs to be given to the appropriate server. And from that appropriate server, you need to get the responses, and then that has to be communicated to the clients, for which you will be making use of an protocol, HTTP or HTTPS protocol. This is the responsibility of your gateway. Simple. Now, coming to server part, if you look into the Tableau's server architecture internally, this is comprising of 3 major components. One is your application server. So this is supposed to be your work group server. So this will take care of in any other system. What an application server will do, server will try to take care of the authentication information, which means, like, it may be maintaining your users passwords and other informations, like who is allowed to use what. All such informations is going to be there in your application server. Okay, and most of the data access operations is going to be performed using my application servers. Okay, and so similarly, you have another interface also, that is the WSQL server. So what this is basically doing is that this will try to it will try to process the queries that I couldn't say it as a queries, the request, which are basically related to the user interface other than the visualizations. So anything with respect to visualization needs to be done. Anything apart from visualization will be taken care by the application server. Anything which is related to the visualizations is going to be taken care by the WSQL server. Okay, and yeah, so that's one more thing that we need to know it. Now we have one more component, as you can see, is the repository. Repository generally means storage, right? So here also, repository is going to again store metadata informations, assignments, groups, projects, all such informations is going to be maintained using your repository, something like your Active Directory, which you will see it in your Windows. Similarly, WSQL server, it is actually a very important component of Tableau, because this is something which is responsible for loading all of the visualizations that you are going to see and work with in Tableau. Okay, so when it comes to SQL also, okay, so WSQL is will convert into an SQL statement, and then it will send down the data sources through respective data source drivers. Okay, so there are certain things that SQL is responsible for performing. And we have a data engine. Data engine is this basically will try to address all the activities which is related to your data extraction, Tableau's data extraction. So this will play a role whenever you're going to have a query that involves extraction procedures. Okay, and we have a backgrounder. Backgrounder is actually it's actually a multi-process element which is going to take care of the scheduling information for kind of refreshing, and also if you wanted to ensure proper functioning of your Tableau server, all of these things could be taken care by the backgrounder. Okay, and then we have a data server. Again, it is a metadata management, and then driver deployment, and then all kind of management with respect to the data could happen with your data server. And what else we have is searching and licensing. These are again very important components, because search component will manage the search indexing for the data in the repository. License is responsible for the licensing and configuration of your Tableau server. Okay, and yeah, so these are the whole components which is involved with respect to your Tableau server architecture alone involves these things. Okay, so you could understand very clearly now. What you could have got an idea is that Tableau server is supposed to be the communication tool, because this is where we are talking about all of the data connections, and also about the visualization. How do you do the visualization with the end users or the clients? All of these informations we are talking only in the data Tableau server architecture. That is clearly giving you an information that Tableau server is supposed to be a communication tool. Okay, so now we have learned about the functioning of each of these components in the Tableau server. Okay, so together how all of them will work. Okay, so how it is going to work means this is going to work in this manner. Basically, it's a layered approach again. It is going to have a customer data layer, which is nothing but your data sources comes first. So as you can see, warehouses are there, data marts are there, files are there, cubes are there. Okay, relational databases. So all of these comes in the first layer, which is your customer data layer. Second is your data connectors layer, which is going to help you to establish connection between the data source to your Tableau. Okay, so you have multiple connectors. One is your data engines, and you have SQL connectors, MDX connectors. Okay, and also there is the data engine. What it is going to do is it is going to process the data requested by the user, and then it is going to assign the data types. Okay, so likewise there are different types of connectors which is available, and that comes in the layer of your data connectors layer. Next is your main component layer, where you have your very important layer, like you have your data server, because that is the one who is going to monitor and regulate all the functioning of the components of your data connector layer. Okay, and also it includes your SQL layer and also your application server. So the application server will take all the user requests which is coming from the Tableau desktop, mobile or browser, and it is going to process the request, and then it is going to detect the type of the request, check the user for authorization, and then it is going to give the access. That's what is the responsibility of your SQL server, right? Similarly, yeah, so those are the responsibility of these three layers. And next one is gateway. We know very well what is the meaning of a gateway. And finally, you have your clients. Okay, so this is how each of the components which is involved in your Tableau architecture is going to work together. So it's again a layered approach which will make want to understand the underlying architecture in a clear manner.